The world knows him as cunning and crafty Odysseus, a great hero of the Trojan War and the main protagonist of the legendary adventures described in the Odyssey. But who was really Odysseus, and how did he get into a position to be one of the most celebrated heroes of the Greek mythology? In this video, we will talk about Odysseus' beginnings and the early reign of the king of Ithaca. One of the most celebrated Greek heroes, one of the prime Achaean champions of the Trojan War, and the legendary king that had spent 10 years in the subsequent voyage on his long way back home, Odysseus, came from a relatively small island of Ithaca in the Ionian Sea to the west of the continental Greece. To get a better understanding of where Odysseus came from, we must first briefly attest the significance of this tiny island and its neighborhood. Ithaca belongs to the group of islands of the southern Ionian Sea. 3 of those islands, namely Kefalonia, Zakynthos and Ithaca, have since the Bronze Age been inhabited by an Achaean tribe called the Kefalenians, which had migrated to the island sometime in the 2nd millennium BCE. According to the legend, the Kefalenians, together with the biggest island of the group, Kefalonia or Kefalenia, had got their name from Cephalus, the first mythical ruler of the islands and the founder of the royal house which Odysseus belonged to. Odysseus' father, Laertes, the king of Kefalenians, was, according to the stories, a great adventurer himself, being one of the Argonauts and taking part in the legendary hunt of the Caledonian boar. He married Anticlea, a noble from the region of Mount Parnassus, and the couple had only one son, Odysseus, and a daughter named Timene. From an early age, young Odysseus was already taking part in hunts and voyages together with his father. It was said that even while being a teenager, Odysseus had become a better hunter than his father, having unprecedented skills with bow and arrow. It's unknown whether Ithaca was the ruling seat of Odysseus' father, or it was the much larger neighboring island of Kefalenia, but either way it was a small kingdom and not nearly as influential as some of the larger palace centers such as Mycenaean, Pylos, Knossos or Thebes. Its economy was based on trade and circulation of goods with other Achaean palaces, with main products being wine, olive oil and crops. However, one of the activities which the inhabitants of these islands were also known for was piracy. Even in his youth, Odysseus was no stranger to seafaring, having his own ship and his own crew. The Ithacan prince would travel across Ionian and Aegean seas in various capacities, sometimes as a trader, but sometimes as a pirate. The Kefalenian pirates usually preyed on lone and lightly defended ships, traveling between the Aegean and Adriatic seas. The coastal raids were also common practice, especially the coastal towns of Acarnania, Epirus, Illyria, and even Italy. To the later Etruscans and Latins, Odysseus was known as Ulysses or Ulixus. Since Odysseus didn't possess large fleet or manpower, merely having a few hundred men at the most at his disposal, bigger harbors were usually avoided, and the target were smaller towns that usually served as temporary spots for long-distance traders. Achaeans in general were no strangers to piracy, and thus Odysseus would sometimes act in accordance or even as a part of a larger operation. When being between 20 and 25 years of age, Odysseus succeeded his father Laertes on the throne of Ithaca. It appears that Laertes abdicated in favor of his son, since the old king was still alive during the Odysseus' long voyage following the Trojan War. One of the first tasks of the newly crowned Odysseus was to reconquer the nearby island of Zakynthos, which risen in revolt to the Ithacan rule. The crafty Odysseus proved himself to be a competent commander by setting a quick sail to Zakynthos and defeating the rebels. As the time had come for the young king to get married, Odysseus looked towards Sparta, where the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen, was said to have lived. The daughter of the Spartan Basileus, named Tyndareus, had many suitors across all of the Achaean palace centers. Among them was a young king from Ithaca. However, ultimately, the Spartan ruler decided to give his daughter to Menelaus, a Mycenaean prince who wasn't even present in Sparta, but instead represented by his brother Agamemnon, the most powerful king among all of the Achaeans. Not only did Agamemnon secure a marriage between Helen and his brother Menelaus, but also influenced Tyndareus to give up his rule of Sparta in favor of Menelaus, and had all of the suitors swear an oath of loyalty to his brother and to himself. Odysseus, in turn, decided that he would not go back home until he had secured a marriage in Sparta. He turned his attention to another Spartan prince, Ikarius, whose daughter, Penelope, was also widely renowned for her beauty. Ikarius, however, being a former champion runner, refused to give his daughter hand to the young Ithacan unless he could defeat the Spartan prince in a running contest. Therefore, the two had agreed on a race. Ikarius, despite having won numerous running competitions in the past, was ultimately no match for the young Odysseus, and the king of Ithaca emerged victorious. The marriage was scheduled shortly and took place in Sparta, with Ikarius trying to convince Odysseus to stay in Lacedaemon and become a prince instead of going back to his islands. However, the young king was not to be pursued, and Penelope became the new queen of the Kefalenians. Few years have passed, and the reign of Odysseus seemed happy and prosperous. He had become a trusted ally of the High King Agamemnon, and his relationship with Nestor, old and wise Basileus of Pylos, was ever increasing, bringing wealth and prosperity to the realm of Ithaca. However, a seemingly unrelated event would forever change the fate of the Ithacan king and everyone surrounding him. A diplomatic mission of Troy arrived to Sparta, and what was a relatively insignificant matter soon became a major scandal, triggering all of Greece to enter a war of unprecedented proportions. Trojan Prince Paris abducted Helen, the princess of Sparta and wife of Menelaus, the brother of King Agamemnon. The Mycenaeans swore total destruction of Troy, calling all of the local kings and princes to join the grand military campaign. In addition, all of the former suitors of Helen were called under oath, and Odysseus was no exception. What happened next is a tale of a legendary war, told and celebrated by generations and generations, and immortalized by Homer's masterpiece of epic poem, the Iliad. Please consider subscribing and sharing the video, as this is a one-person production and it greatly helps the visibility of the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. This was WanaxTV, and we'll see you again soon.